Welcome to Mining Hub. My name is Bill Stormont, and I'm here today with Mike Burke, VP of Corporate Development with Sitka Gold. Sitka trades on the Venture under the ticker SIG and on the OTCQB as SITKF. There's certainly been no shortage of news from Sitka over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, the announcement of the Clear Creek property last week was significant, and then yesterday we had news updating on the drill program at the company's flagship RC Gold project and commencement of work at Clear Creek. So lots to talk about. Welcome to Mining Hub, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bill. Great to be chatting with you.
Fantastic. It's great to have you here. And just before we do get started, I'd just like to draw your attention to this forward-looking statement. So nothing we talk about today is intended as investment advice. It's for information purposes only. Do your own due diligence if you're interested in learning more about Sitka. But without further ado, and with that out of the way, let's talk about Clear Creek, the acquisition itself, June 24th. It's a significant addition to the RC Gold project, contiguous with Blackjack. Can you maybe talk a bit about the rationale, how it fits with the existing portfolio, give us some color around how it came about, the terms, etc. And I also expect people will be interested to know, obviously the day you announced it was the same day that Victoria Gold had that unfortunate accident up at their Eagle mine. And so, I'd be keen to know what the implications, if any, are of that.
Yeah. So we'll talk about this, and then after we can pop up and chat very briefly about Sitka Gold's other assets. But this is the RC property, which is our flagship property in the Yukon. It's in the Tombstone Gold Belt. We've got some slides to talk about that. But on June 24th, Bill, we've been working on acquiring the Clear Creek, that's the blue area claims from Victoria Gold, for a fairly long time here. We've been chatting with them and working on this acquisition, which is a critical part. I mean, if you do jigsaw puzzles, you can see why we wanted this fairly important piece. Where we've been working our property, you can see those two red stars. That's the Blackjack and the Eiger deposits. They cover the northern part of the Clear Creek intrusion complex. If you really get close to the screen, you can see those kind of hatched areas. Those are Tombstone age intrusives that are all known to have gold mineralization with them. So the Victoria Gold ground that we acquired has, 4 really excellent targets on them. And so myself, I worked 20 years with the Yukon government as regional geologist. I'm very familiar with that piece of ground. It probably received the most amount of work in this Clear Creek district prior to Sitka Gold getting in and making the discoveries to the north. So acquiring this ground was very critical because it captures 3 more intrusions in the southern part of the Clear Creek intrusive complex. And now Sitka Gold has 100% ownership of this area. So it's a super important acquisition for us, something that we've had our sights on for a couple of years, in all honesty.
So you mentioned some of Sitka's other projects. Just before we delve into this in more detail, maybe we should just back up and just take a high-level overview, because RC is obviously your flagship project, but you've got great exposure across North America. Could you just give a bit of an overview before we go further on RC?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're typical of any exploration junior mining company. They have, not just one asset, and that's the case with us. RC Gold, obviously, the discoveries we've made up there has made it our primary asset that we're focused on. But we're diversified. We have other projects in pretty stellar parts of North America. Alpha Gold, that's a project that we've been working on for about 4 years, just doing small drill programs. It's about 40 miles south of the Cortez Hills mine complex in Nevada. So it's in elephant country for sure. Our geologist down there, Scott Price, he's a Nevada geologist. He came to us with this project years ago, identified where he thought that there's the same equivalent host stratigraphy to some of the deposits that we see in the Cortez Trend existed on Alpha. So we've done about 5,000 meters of drilling over the years. Definitely identified that equivalent stratigraphy, which, I know enough Nevada geology to be dangerous, but you need the right rocks, and we have the right rocks there. We've hit gold mineralization in almost all the drill holes, but we're trying to zone in on the big prize there. So again, for more information on this, we have information on our website. You can dig into it. It's great property. Burrow Creek, it's a big gold silver epithermal vein in Arizona, nearly went into production back in the late 80s. It was ready to go, but we know what the gold price did in the late 80s, went down to about 261, I think was the worst day I remember. But anyways, that project's been advancing over the years. It's got a historical resource on it. 5 million ounces of silver and 120,000 ounces of gold. There's been additional drilling, and we've been waiting for a BLM permit. It's on privately held lands, the existing resource, but extends, off onto BLM lands. So we've had those claims for a while, been waiting for a drill permit, and just received that after a couple years this spring. So that project, we've been kind of have it in the pipeline and waiting to be able to do something, and now we can. We just have to decide what it is we're going to do. And then lastly, Coppermine River up in Nunavut. It's only about 40 kilometers from Tidewater. This area is getting a lot more attention with some of the sediment hosted copper that's been found up there in this area. This is 100% owned by Sitka. We have a subsidiary company, Arctic Copper, up there, and surface discovery made by our geologist, Don Penner, president, and Corco up there, 14% copper and 2 ounces of silver at surface. Done some gravity work, and we've got a drill target there. It's never been drilled. And the prize, if a Kamoa type thing is up there and we happen to find it, is pretty huge. So it was also waiting for a drill permit for a very long time. So after a couple of years, we got it a couple of weeks apart from the Burrow Creek permit. So all our projects are fully permitted and ready to go. So we're focused on RC Gold, but we're obviously looking at ways of monetizing these other great assets, perhaps advancing them ourselves, but we obviously have interest in them from other folks. So we'll figure out what's best for them.
Oh, fair. So you won't necessarily advance all of these projects on your own. You'll look at partnerships, JVs, options.
Yeah, we'll consider everything that makes sense for our shareholders. So plenty of options there, but we're ready to pull the pin. We have plans on all of them. We know what needs to be done on them. So if the right situation comes along, we'll move on it pretty quick.
Okay. Well, so let's circle back to where we began the conversation, and focus on RC Gold, given that's where your attention is. Maybe share a bit about location, geography, proximity to other mines and projects in the region, and also maybe if you could elaborate a bit. There's been so much attention given to the Tombstone Gold Belt. The reduced intrusion related gold systems have taken on, they've become a watchword in the industry, and certainly Snowline's Great Valley deposit and the success they've had there has really focused people on this. And I know you've been involved in even thematic panels on the Tombstone Gold Belt. So could you elaborate, just give us that big picture, top-down take on where you are and situated?
Yeah, for sure. So, sometimes we assume everybody knows what the Tombstone Gold Belt is, but I'll assume people don't know. So if you see that kind of yellow band within the bigger brown band, that's the Tombstone Gold Belt. And what that is a suite of intrusions that all have a similar age. They're 93 million years old, give or take. And so you can see a break in that yellow band. There's something called the Tintina Fault that transects Yukon and Alaska, and it has over 450 kilometers of offset. So if you restore that offset, the Fort Knox mine that was discovered in Alaska in the 80s, Unfortunately, plate tectonics moved it into Alaska away from the Yukon. Otherwise, we'd have that big mine here. But anyways, it shows that that belt of rocks has some continuity. After the discovery of Fort Knox, there was companies, actually Robert Freeland's private company came over and looked at these same age intrusions in the Yukon. And so part of that process, they looked at Brewery Creek, Sitka Gold, our Clear Creek there in that area, the Eagle Mine, so Dublin Gulch as it was formerly known, Scheelite Dome, which is another project of Victoria Gold. So they had a good look, staked a bunch of projects up, did some work, and the Eagle Mine is the one that kind of rose to the top. So the Eagle Mine is about 60 kilometers to the east of our RC Gold project, but these deposits, they're all hosted within the intrusive rocks. There are these sheeted veins, very common style of mineralization. Valley Gold out to the east, same thing, very similar style of mineralization. There we just see a really high vein density and hence their higher grades. And that's what we're seeing in our blackjack deposit on the Sitka Gold. We're seeing, higher vein density or thicker veins that seem to be giving us a higher grade within the blackjack deposit than is typically seen within these intrusive rocks. They're, if you look at the Eagle Gold mine, their grades are around 0.6 grams per ton that they've been mining. Fort Knox was around 0.6. They're mining 0.3 now. So yeah, these are typically lower grade. Snowline came out with their plus, 1.25 grams. Our blackjack deposit, the resource that we put out was just under a gram, but if we fiddle with the cutoff grade, we can get to a gram quite easily, and we'll get to some slides to talk about them. But again, this slide here just shows, the area between Mayo and the Yukon and Dawson, which is just slightly off your screen up there. And there's been a lot of gold found in this area. And as mentioned, the Eagle Gold Mine is in this belt. So it's been producing for a few years now. Unfortunately, they had the incident at their heap leach pad, but we're hoping with some of the news that just came out today and hopefully the impact on the environment is minimal. So we can see some positive news come out of that and see it get back on its feet one day.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the great hope, and obviously it had some short-term implications. So when we're looking at the region broadly, I mean, what sort of context are we working with in terms of historic ounces pulled out of that immediate area that you're in?
Yeah, well, most of the ounces has been a lot of placer mining in this district, and that's why it has the good infrastructure. You can see roads that access our project, as well as, Banyan and Victoria Gold. That's because placer mining has occurred here for, 100 years. So good access into the area. We access our property out of Dawson, Banyan and Victoria Gold access out of Mayo. So we have an advantage. We can fly jets right into Dawson. It's a great infrastructure. You can see the highway goes by in red. That's where the power line is, etc. So we're well placed. But because this area has seen that better infrastructure, the best infrastructure in the Yukon within the Tombstone Gold Belt, it's seen the most work, and it's gone through a number of kind of exploration waves. And the most recent one starting kind of in 2020, when we started drilling, started seeing results coming out of Banyan. And since 2020, there's been over 11 million ounces of gold added to this part of the world in the Tombstone Gold Belt. So a lot of that at Banyan with their 7 million ounces. Victoria Gold's increased their ounces. They've made some discoveries at Raven, our discovery, and of course some other ounces added at Brewery Creek and Florin Gold. So yeah, it's a pretty prolific part of the world. This last phase of exploration, though, has really started to bear fruit.
I mean, two questions. One just on the placer component. I mean, that's a characteristic of Fort Knox and a lot of these other successful mines or projects that became mines, and that a consistent sort of feature too for what you see here. So RC itself is Was that one of the original attractions of the area? Do you have a number for historic placer ounces?
Out of the Clear Creek area, I think it's something like 120,000 ounces. Yeah, it's gold in the creeks is a beautiful anomaly, right? I mean, I think that's been something that's intrigued geologists for a long time. And yeah, it's pretty consistent where we do see these large gold deposits, within these intrusive rocks. They've been generating placer gold. So there's a placer district in the Clear Creek area. There's all throughout here. So, and you see that at Fort Knox as well. So it's definitely a good indicator that there's gold in them there hills somewhere.
Are they active? The
oh yeah. A lot of historical mining, but in the Clear Creek area, for instance, Clear Creek itself, had a change in ownership, and the new miner is doing quite a big cut just below our camp. So we're seeing some increased activity in there, and there's been some other creeks to the north of the Josephine intrusion that were mined in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's been seeing real good production.
Okay. And the other question I was going to ask was on the infrastructure side of things. How does that affect your cost per meter? Because when you get into these remote site operations, you can have, great intercepts, but your cost per meter can be off the charts if it's always heli supported. I'm curious what you see on that front.
Yeah, we're not isolated. This is the best infrastructure in the Yukon in this part of the world. So yeah, we're road accessible. It's a 2-hour drive from Dawson for us. So last year during the summer, our all-in costs for our drilling were $330 a meter, which is pretty darn good for this part of the world. We do sometimes use a helicopter still. There's places where we'd prefer to do a bit of helicopter drilling before we put in some extra road infrastructure. And less disturbance is a better way to go.
Yeah.
But even with that includes some helicopter drilling last year, because being so close to Dawson, we don't necessarily have the same kind of minimums and charges. So it's
Sure.
Worked out really well, brings our costs down.
Okay, thank you. I was curious about that. So why don't we get back to Clear Creek and the acquisition there, and really talk about how you're approaching this. So you've got a 15,000 meter drill program that you announced. You drilled through the winter. You had some good results. I think hole 58, if memory serves correctly, was a successful hole for you. How and then of course you made you announced the Clear Creek acquisition. You've got now, I guess with the Blackjack mineralized corridor, you've got a 10-kilometer long mineralized corridor here, including Clear Creek. Can you talk about how you're allocating those meters across the project, across RC, and now including Clear Creek, and how you're prioritizing the targets we see on the screen now, and if you do think it's significant, this hole 58, the couple of holes that you had over the winter, which looked promising, how those tie into the whole program.
Yeah, so hole 57 and 58 we drilled in the winter. We just drilled for about a month in the winter. We can access this area easily. We could drill longer in the winter, but we just chose to do a smaller program there. But 57 and 58 were to continue following up on the extension of the Blackjack zone to the south. And when in hole 21, the original discovery hole, that's when they first identified what was called the Blackjack Fault, north-south fault. It's kind of hard to see, but the saddle stock, which hosts the Blackjack deposit, it's kind of elongated in a north-south direction. And we think there's some control there with the Blackjack Fault. And when we looked at hole 47, 57, and 58 and did some 3D looking at that, we could see that the highest grade kind of core of those drill holes were lining up with the Blackjack Fault, and it's north-south. So we can extend that down. There's a little intrusion of the south of the Blackjack deposit called Pukuman West, And then you can see the western boundary of the Rosgobble stock is pretty linear. So that projection of the Blackjack Fault just goes down through there, and we think it's an important control on mineralization. We've talked before about these east-west, excuse me, extensional zones. You can see an east-west direction in the Pukaman and Pukaman West and the Rosgobble and the Big Creek stock. So there's, like every good mineral deposit, it's structure, 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 and we're seeing intersections of key structures as being important geological targets for us, and places where we see concentration of mineralization. So we're excited about that kind of east-west trend that we see in the Rosgobble stock intersecting that Blackjack trend. So both within that east-west trend and then in the north-south. So we've got a lot of exposed targets as well as hypothetical ones. We're doing some soil sampling and things to go in there to see if there's some targets that haven't been found yet. But at the same time, the acquisition of this ground presented us immediately with some excellent drill targets.
So, and am I right that you're doing the first diamond holes on Rosgobble? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Some of the surface work that you're describing?
Yeah, this was drilled in 1995 by Kennecott. They did, I think it's 26 60-meter deep reverse circulation drill holes. And then they left the territory in 1996. They had a whole bunch of projects on the go. They had this one. They had the Scheelite Dome property. They were up in the 60 Mile, and corporate change, and they left the Yukon. So this drilling has sat there for, I don't want to do the math, but it's a long time.
Yeah.
1995. And you can see there's in the red outlines, those are intersections all over a gram. The other color, the yellowy, is intersections over half a gram. And then in the center of the screen there, where we're going to be drilling underneath, is the two holes, 15 and 16, that hit 50 meters of better than a gram and 67 meters of better than a gram. They both bottomed in mineralization. They were scissor holes from the same spot. You'll see in the next slide. So it's a pretty obvious place to drill. We have a really good understanding of the controls on these sheeted vein systems. We're looking to the north here. These veins run east-west, so we're looking down the strike of the veins. They're steeply dipping zones. We see that at Blackjack and Eiger, so we're just going to step back and drill underneath those two drill holes there. And we're pretty confident we're going to see some nice mineralization down there. And with diamond drilling, we do oriented drilling. We'll confirm, the orientation of the controls on mineralization. But this is an intriguing target that, personally I've been aware of since 1995, because I was up there when Kennecott drilled, when I worked for the Yukon Geological Survey as the regional geologist. So I've had my eyes on this, and it's pretty surprising that we're the first ones to be able to get back in there and drill it since that time.
Yeah, I'm always a bit amazed when I see, historic intercepts like this, and then I read something like your news release that says it hasn't been drilled since 1995. It just seems remarkable to me to see something this promising or good, interesting, untouched for so long. But
well, yeah, it happens all the time. So we're happy about it.
No. And what sort of depth are we looking at here in terms of the program?
Yeah, so this hole is about 300 meters, which is your typical depth of an open pit.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to, visually adjust that if we need to, but it's a good first jab at this. We want to just, be able to drill here and see the potential, and then we'll start stepping out from that. We'll design our program. And then as well, you mentioned how, obviously we knew we were working on this acquisition for a while. So our current drill plan hasn't, 15,000 meters this summer hasn't changed. We knew we might be reallocating things around a little bit. So obviously we're going to be doing some drilling on this target, but we're not abandoning ship on our Blackjack deposit. We're still stepping out to the south in depth as we drill outside of that resource that we announced in January of 2023. We're still expanding that. And then we have other targets, the Saddle Zone and the Eiger on our ground to the north, and then other targets as well on this ground that we acquired the Clear Creek property.
And you have, maybe it's just on Blackjack, but I think pretty good met work. You've had 94% recoveries.
We did some initial bottle roll test work that, just to show that there's nothing unique about this. It's similar to the other deposits in the belt, so it's non-refractory. Yep. We'll definitely look at doing some more metallurgical work, as we've drilled a little bit deeper. I think people wonder, is that got the same characteristics? And we believe it does. We see no reason why not, but we'll do a bit more metallurgy on that to show that that's the case.
Is there any at Clear Creek, any historic met work done there?
There was a bit of met work done on that Bear Paw Breccia target, that again showed some positive results. That's never been published. But I don't think on the contact zone there's been any met work. But these all have such similar characteristics. A lot of people talk about, well, are you in the oxides? Typically in these things, you do get oxidation up high, but the gold isn't encapsulated by sulfides. So even if you are below the zone of oxidation, the gold, there's such low sulfide system, the gold is still available for cyanide and heap leaching process. So yeah, you don't typically see the same need to be up in the oxide zone.
And how much latitude do you have to, as you're drilling, to change things around, to move drills? Maybe you want to change up the drill program. You've got flexibility, optionality built into what you're doing. Yeah,
absolutely. In fact, when you look at the whole RC Gold project, 421 square kilometers, it has class 3 and class 4 permits over its entirety. So there's plenty of room for us to build roads, extra drilling. So yeah, we're fully permitted, which is very important. It takes a while to get to that stage. It's a bit of work, but we're permitted on every part of this project. So we're very flexible. I mean, we're always adjusting. Your last drill hole helps with the next one. So yeah, we're always doing that.
Yeah. Could we maybe move forward a bit here and talk maybe talk a bit on the corporate side of things as well?
Yep.
And I was really interested in, unless you want to, we can drill more into pardon the pun, into the geology and other work that you're doing here at Blackjack, if you'd like.
Well, just a little bit. This just shows, the east-west corridors. Those are defined by these, for the geologists out there, these Lamprofere dikes that are, they're deep mantle source intrusives that come up and define these extensional zones. And they're typically associated with some of the better gold deposits in this belt. So that's how these kind of east-west mineralized zones are. The mineralized veins themselves in the intrusions are east-west, and in the background there we see soil geochemistry. So those purple colors are where we see on the northern part of the Clear Creek intrusive complex, the Blackjack zone, the Eiger zone deposits, and the Saddle zone in between them have some really nice geochemistry. So that helps form some of our kind of planning for doing more drill work, and that's an area we'll be focused on this year as well.
Maybe we should actually, before we do go corporate, we should talk more about the historic drilling and on Blackjack and Eiger, because there's a slide in here I think that just gives a really good sense of how they're, the work that's been done there historically, and just,
yeah. I mean,
both of those.
The first drilling in this area was done by Core Co, our CEO, in 2020. And they drilled 6 holes, and 4 of them intersected pretty significant mineralization. 1 hit in that Eiger deposit, 1 hit in the Saddle zone, and 1 hit in the Blackjack deposit. And then so 2021, most of the drilling was all in that Eiger deposit. But at the end of the year, hole 21 was put in, and it nailed the guts of the Blackjack deposit. It hit that 220 meters of 1.17 grams per ton. So that's, our official discovery hole. It was hole 21, drilled in 2021, and it was 21 specks of visible gold that the geologist noted. So it's pretty obvious where the name Blackjack came from.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but since then, importantly, that resource was based on 11,000 meters of drilling. And since then, we've done about an additional 9,000 meters of drilling. And you can see on the Blackjack, that's on the left side of the screen, that drilling has continued to expand that deposit. So we've hit great mineralization to the south and at depth. So we're continuing to expand that. And we've had some pretty significant intersections too. We've seen some great grades in our drilling.
And of the we can see that on this slide.
Yeah, on this slide on the left hand, you can see from hole 2 down to hole 40. That was the drilling that was included in that resource that was put out in January of 2023. Just highlighted significant hits that are kind of above 1.5 grams. You can see higher grades extend from surface hole 24, right at 16 meters depth, 66 meters at 2.11 grams per ton. So Blackjack has a higher grade component to it. Thus, it's, kind of higher overall grade. On the right-hand side of the screen from hole 41 on, that's drilling that is outside of that resource area. And we've hit, there's 7 holes that are greater than 100 gram meters. And hole 57 and 58 in the red are the winter drilling that we did this year. So the Blackjack deposit continues to expand to the south and at depth, and the grade is looking pretty nice. So with our 15,000 meters of drilling this year, most of that again is going to be focused on expanding Blackjack, as well as starting to test other targets on this newly acquired Clear Creek ground and elsewhere on the property. So we're excited about, what we're seeing in the Blackjack as the cornerstone deposit to really drive this district.
Can we take a look at some of the core as well? I think we have.
Yeah,
this
is a shot from hole 47, which was our best drill hole on the property, and it's pretty typical. That's kind of a megacrystic quartz monzonite is how we describe that. So big white feldspar crystals in it, and then just lots of little quartz veins. And when you dive into the quartz veins, you see a little bit of sulfides in there, some bismuthinite, the odd bit of visible gold. So this is from the higher grade portion of that hole 47, and you can see the consistency of the grade in there. So, when we start getting down deeper, we might be getting to the limits of an open pit, but with these kind of grades, we're not going to stop chasing it at depth, because they're the kind of grades that can support an underground operation at some time. So there's lots of optionality in front of us, but the shallow high grade stuff is what we're drilling off first. We'll carry on chasing that to the south.
What's your deepest hole? Just at Blackjack?
About 400 meters, so but at an angle. So our depth of drilling is at about that 300 meter mark.
Okay.
We do, when we put out our resource, it was a pit constrained resource. So there are some, some resources that extend beyond that pit shell. So definitely it keeps extending down to depth.
And if again, I think it was on the Clear Creek release, but a number of these holes have ended in mineralization. Is that correct?
Yeah, like on the Clear Creek release, the table's pretty, you'll never see it in this video, but you can go to our press release and have a look at it. And it outlines 4 areas on the Clear Creek property. That's the Rosgobble, Contact, Pukaman, and the Bearpaw Breccia. And, a lot of that drilling was done in 2011 and 2012 by Golden Predator. They used a diamond drill as well as an RC rig, mostly RC drilling. and they had a lot of issues with that. Some of them couldn't get to depth, so there's a lot of potential to, I think, better drill these areas with the diamond drill only. I think the diamond drill works a lot better up here. That's what we're finding.
So with that, maybe I can jump to some of the corporate questions that I wanted to raise, because obviously you've got an enormously experienced team, and a impressive board as well. Could you maybe talk a bit about that, just how you're structured from a corporate perspective, but also just, let's go into things like what's cash position, shares outstanding, where you are right now in terms of the capital structure. Will you need to raise more? What should we be expecting too in terms of news flow that will be coming out over the summer, obviously with your exploration results, but are there any milestone news releases we should be looking forward to?
Well, we've got the share price up. So shares outstanding 273 million. We're trading at about 15 cents, maybe up a little bit. We institutional, you can see we've had Crescat come in the last little bit, Commodity Discovery Fund, Sprott, so a few outfits out of Toronto. We switched from the CSE to the TSX Venture earlier this year, and then we saw some analysts start covering us, Paradigm and Agentis. So we've seen a good appreciation in our share price over the last year. The Victoria incident impacted a lot of Yukon explorers. No exception was us, because the same day that we announced our acquisition was the same day they had the failure at their heap leach pad. So we're kind of tied at the hip, but really that incident doesn't affect our project. We were extremely happy to be able to complete that deal before things went a little south for Victoria, because it's an important part of the puzzle, and it might not have been available for us if that deal hadn't happened. So we're pretty happy about that, but just like everybody else, it was a bad day in the Yukon when that incident happened. So thankfully, it seems that it's not as it's still serious, but hopefully the outcome is better than people expected the day of. So anyways, our share price is very strong. We think we're undervalued, as everybody does in these markets. They've been tough, but we did see an appreciation in our share price when we announced the deal, and we're starting to see that again now. So really looking forward. News flow, we're up there drilling now. So we're going to have drill results all summer and into the fall. We're doing other bits of work up there. There's some underexplored areas that we're going to get out on the ground and have a look at. So some new discoveries that weren't advanced on the property. So hopefully we generate some new targets as well. So a lot of work ahead of us. We're fully financed. We have over $4 million. So we're financed for this year's program. So no need to go to the markets there, but we're a junior mining company. We're always open to financing if things are right. So our project is scalable. We've budgeted for that 15,000 meters of drilling, but I mentioned we're fully permitted. If we wanted to bring 3 more drills on the property tomorrow, we could do that. So as far as increasing the budget and the work program, that's something that we're amenable to doing very quickly if the conditions are right. But in the meantime, we've budgeted for this program that we have.
Can I ask a slightly unfair question, perhaps? But you mentioned value. You mentioned that you're undervalued, or you see yourself as undervalued, as does everyone in the junior mining sector. But generally speaking, what do you think it takes to get the value realized, not just in you, but in the sector broadly? It seems to me that there are, well, you tell me, but I'm just curious what you think it takes to catalyze share prices and in this sector.
I mean, it's across the board. A lot of people are undervalued, but I think mergers, acquisitions, right? If we see companies like us that continue to expand resources that we've discovered to the point where folks can look at them and go, oh, this is potentially economic, and that triggers some acquisitions. I think that's really going to help quality juniors that have solid assets. And that's what we feel we have. Our infrastructure is so good where we are. We're seeing higher than the typical grades, especially in our blackjack deposit. So we think that separates us from the pack, that infrastructure and the higher grades. So hopefully that people are always, everybody knows companies like us get looked at, and people are following us. So we hope that the success that we predict we're going to have will attract a little bit more attention there.
I always feel like that equation, location, grade, infrastructure, adding that together gets you a long way. It's just a question of time. But I mean, those qualities.
Yeah. We market through the drill hole. Our best marketing is our drill hole results, and we hope that attracts attention and gets us to the point where we receive the attention we think we need and see that share price appreciation.
What should I have asked that I haven't asked? What should people take away as a just some closing thoughts?
Well, I think one thing we haven't touched on is the team. Anybody that's investing in a company should really pay attention to the management.
Yeah.
So if just
maybe we can pull that slide up.
Yeah, we had our directors up there. That'll pop up. But just to introduce myself, I'm a geologist as well. I've worked in the Yukon most of my career. I worked 20 years for the Yukon Geological Survey. So starting in 1990, when these intrusive hosted gold deposits were just being discovered and come into being. So I'm very familiar with them. I've looked at all the, the different mines and exploration targets in this belt. I've been to Fort Knox back in the day. So a lot of experience. Corco, I met him when he was working in the mid-90s on an intrusive hosted gold deposit in the Yukon. Geologist as well, strong technically. Don Penner, geologist. I met him through my role with the Yukon Geological Survey and worked with him after up at Brewery Creek when we worked there. So we've got a very technically strong board with a good financial background too, Core's background. Recently, we brought on Angus Campbell as another independent director. Angus was the VP of exploration for Sabina Gold and Silver that got taken out by B2. So he brings a lot of experience for us as we get our project a little more advanced, where he was with Sabina. Our advisory board, Craig Hart. Craig and I work together at the Geological Survey. He's the chair over at Snowline Gold. Yeah, so we've got a really strong group, and that's very important for anybody to look at when they're looking at junior mining companies. You got to be able to say what you're going to do and do what you're going to say, So it's important to get the job done, and I think that's the reputation Sitka Gold and its management team has. We said we're not a bank. We don't raise money to just hang on to it. We want to go out there and make discoveries, and that's what we've done. So that's very important.
Yeah. No. Yeah. More.
Yeah. Other things to touch on. I think we've covered things hopefully quite well. People can get a hold of us for more information. We've got a lot of other good projects, but obviously our focus is this RC Gold project, and we're really looking forward to uncovering the true potential of the project now that we've really consolidated the district 100%. That's a really, really big milestone for us, something we've been looking forward to for a long time, and we're extremely happy to have that ground now all under our control. So we're looking forward to that kind of holistic approach to our exploration now, with the cornerstone being that blackjack deposit, which is a fantastic discovery. So news flow, lots of drill hole results coming out this summer.
Great. So last data point, what's the best email to get on your distribution list at Sitka, and where can investors, interested parties find you?
Yeah, www.sitkagold.com, and then there's the info@sitkagoldcorp.com email address. So yeah, you can get on our mail list and have a look, a little more in-depth look at our projects if you want. And yeah, a few of our phone numbers are on the site, so don't be afraid to touch base with us. And yeah, we're working hard right now, and we're going to continue working hard all summer long, and look forward to the results that we're going to be putting out.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time, Mike. Great to learn more about Sitka, and look forward to hearing from you over the summer as things progress.
Yeah, thanks for the chat, Bill. That was good.
Cheers.
Cheers.